Facebook Live. Hit the road, Jack. Not that we want anybody's pet to hit the road, but you know, that seems to be their inner calling, doesn't it? And we got to get our arms around this thing. Obviously, we've got risks like hit by car and dog fights or just a lost dog. So, you know, do you ever come home to open the door and your dog blasts out, takes off like she was shot out of a cannon, and doesn't come back when you call? Or how about this one? You get home from work and, you know, she's camped out at the front door, having burrowed under the fence. Or how about this one? You look out your back window just in time to see him sailing over the fence. Why are they doing this? Well, that's the important question, because if you simply say, look, we've got to get control of this thing, so you chain up your dog or confine her to a run, you're risking actually worsening some of the underlying causes of these behaviors. So if we're going to really get our arms around it and improve the life of your dog and his safety and your mental well-being, then we absolutely have to unravel the cause. And there can be several of them. And Cindy, thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. It's always excellent to have you attending these things. So in case we haven't met, which of course I know Cindy, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm a veterinarian. I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine, but I've done a lot of emergency work and I know all about hit by cars. I've fixed those fractures and I've dealt with the cases that, well, they're not quite so fortunate. So this is a high priority, but dealing with this thing such that we actually make these behaviors better is really the underlying point. So what are some of the big causes? Well, separation anxiety can be a very big one. We think about that with dogs who damage stuff when you're away from home, you know, try to rip through the front door or tear down the blinds because they're just frantically trying to catch up with you as you drive away. Well, that certainly happens. But many dogs will jump the fence or burrow through or under the fence in order to get away. But the truth is they don't really want to get very far away, so they're the ones you actually find camped out around the front door. And separation anxiety is a complicated problem. It's very individual. And we see different presentations with different dogs, but we certainly, in those cases, need to keep those dogs occupied with canine-specific behavioral opportunities, like foraging from food toys. I'm a real big one on dog doors, because these dogs with anxiety, sometimes they're just getting a little bit crawling out of their skin indoors, and if they have the option, the choice, to go outside, well, the dog door is there for them. And some of those food toys, for example, you can bury them under or hide them under furniture or beneath sofa cushions, so your dog really has to forage and sniff out the food. But you can also dig them and bury them under a few inches of dirt in a dog's digging box in the yard, which gives them a legitimate place to dig, so they're not digging up your garden. And they stay occupied surviving, which is the natural behavior that most dogs are supposed to be doing throughout the day in the wild, and that's figuring out how to survive another day. And if you stop feeding your dog from a bowl, but provide every bit of his nutrition in somewhat challenging food dispensing toys and puzzles, then that is a key component, by no means all of it, but that's a really important way of dealing with dogs who have separation anxiety. Here's another important cause, is fear of loud noises, or what we call noise phobia. Many dogs, it's thunderstorms, it can be nearby construction noise. And here in Albuquerque, coming up in early October, boy, anybody who lives here knows that we have the Balloon Fiesta, which, you know, most everybody thinks it's beautiful and it's excellent and it's a great economic boon to the city and all those valuable things. But there are some dogs who just get scared witless by these crazy noisy monsters in the sky that come close to them, and they have no clue what to do about this thing. And some of them will escape, and they'll jump the fence or burrow under the fence frantically looking for some other place that's safe. They're highly confused, and these dogs can travel a long distance from home. So be sure your dog is microchipped and wearing an identification tag. But again, don't just tie them up or chain them, because they can get really freaked out because they can't escape. And so those dogs tend to need opportunities to crawl into a den-like snug enclosure. Keep a indoor, like a walk-in closet or some other snug place that does not have an exterior wall. Play some music, some soothing music, like Through a Dog's Ear that you can get on the internet. or very quiet classical music. You know, these big noisy box fans, the old-fashioned ones, can help drown out the sound. Here's something that I recommend to my colleagues. It's a prescription medication. Let me turn the camera around so you can see this. And this stuff is called Sileo. Dexmedetomidine is the generic name. At higher doses, this stuff has been used for years as a injectable sedative, very safe in dogs. But at a lower dose, it actually has a different function. It's an anti-anxiety. And it's given using this syringe, has no needle, of course, and you slide it between the dog's lower lip and gum, and you deliver a little measured blob of this gel, and in 20 minutes, they start to feel much better, and it's non-sedating, so they can still operate heavy machinery if they need to. Nobody's going to get a DWI on Sileo, but they feel a heck of a lot better and be much less likely to try to escape the house or the yard. So, you know, we can help these pets out. And then, of course, the last big category is dogs who escape with intent to roam. These are dogs who are doing what actually comes natural to this species, and that is that they're supposed to leave the territory at least a couple times a day to get out and sniff and investigate and read the bulletin boards and post a few messages, because they're so highly social. It's an innate, essential need. And you can, for many dogs, they can meet that need with a couple of good leash walks, as long as you give them time to sniff and investigate and do a little competitive urinating and all those other normal canine things. But some dogs need even more of it than that, so dog parks can be a good way to go. Doggy daycare at a good kennel. Animal Humane New Mexico here in Albuquerque has a new building with a great doggy daycare service. And for dogs who have separation anxiety, for example, or who really need to get outside the territory, that is a great way of avoiding these problems, because they're getting their needs met. In the case of separation anxiety dogs, they're not alone. And so every case is a little bit different. And so what I'd like to do first is answer Cindy's question. Before I started taking my dog for regular walks, he would always try to run out the door. Well, there you go. And so by taking him for regular walks, your individual dog is getting a really essential need met, Cindy, so nice job on that. So I'm going to read you a study. It's not a study, actually it's a story. And it's a pet that I saw, and I'm going to include most all of the history details, because there are a few things going on with this dog, and your situation or somebody you know, and by the way, if you have a friend or a family member whose dog keeps trying to blast out of the premises, tag them on this Facebook Live, because of course I'm going to post it and it'll be on my Facebook page forever. So, you know, it's not going to go away. So, this dog named Jamie was adopted from a breed rescue service that had found her as a stray. Of course, when she was a stray, she was out there sniffing and exploring outside her territory all the time. Not very safely, but she was getting that need met before she became somebody's real pet. She was 2 years old when they adopted her 6 years ago, so she's now an 8-year-old dog. And these folks live in a house with a large yard. And many people with big yards say, well, gee, you know, my dog's getting his needs met by running around this good-sized yard. Well, you know, that can be pretty good for exercise, especially if you throw the ball or the frisbee. But it's not outside the territory, and that's really important for so many of these dogs. So her pet parents are Bob and Cindy, and Bob has raised the fence multiple times because he was trying to contain the dog that they loved by raising the fence. And that's not a bad idea at all, but it doesn't